Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Govijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. welcome to today's class in Srimad Bhagavatam. I ask for your blessings that I can say something meaningful, and we always speak to purify ourselves. So, in that sense, I think all people should speak about Krishna at least because they can purify their consciousness. And then Krishna is in the heart, so he inspires us and he gives us actually the knowledge that we can speak something meaningful about him. So it's always by the mercy of Krishna and the acharyas. So before we start, we will say the mantra for auspiciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are continuing the reading from the Canto 4 of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 26, which is entitled King Puranjana Goes to the Forest to Hunt. We're going to read today text 4. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Driptate shukarmukaha. Driptate shukarmukaha. Vihaya jaya matat arham. Vihaya jaya matat arham. Mriga vyasana lalasaha. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Driptate shukarmukaha. Vihaya jaya matat arham. Mriga vyasana lalasaha. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Driptate shukarmukaha. Vihaya jaya matadarham. Mriga vyasana lalasaha. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Driptate shukarmukaha. Vihaya jaya matadarham. Mriga vyasana lalasaha. Chachara mrigayam tatra. Driptate shukarmukaha. Vihaya jaya matadarham. Mriga vyasana lalasaha. So reading word by word with translation. Chachara, executed. Mrigayam, hunting. Tatra, there. Driptaha, being proud. Ata, having taken. Ishu, arrows. Karmukaha, bow. Vihaya, giving up. Jayam, his wife. Atat arham, although impossible. Mriga, hunting. Vyasana, evil activities. Lalasaha, being inspired by. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It was almost impossible for King Puranjana to give up the company of his queen, even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Purport. One form of hunting is known as woman hunting. A conditioned soul is never satisfied with one wife. Those whose senses are very much uncontrolled especially try to hunt for many women. King Puranjana's abandoning the company of his religiously married wife is representative of the conditioned soul's attempt to hunt for many women for sense gratification. Wherever a king goes, he is supposed to be accompanied by his queen. But when the king or conditioned soul becomes greatly overpowered by the desire for sense gratification, he does not care for religious principles. Instead, with great pride, he accepts the bow and arrow of attachment and hatred. Our consciousness is always working in two ways, the right way and the wrong way. When one becomes too proud of his position, influenced by the mode of passion, he gives up the right path and accepts the wrong one. Kshatriya kings are sometimes advised to go to the forest to hunt ferocious animals, just to learn how to kill. But such forays are never meant for sense gratification. Killing animals to eat their flesh is forbidden for human beings. So the verse again, it was almost impossible for King Puranjana to give up the company of his queen, even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow, with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So before we start, I will ask you a little bit of questions because this chapter is, for me, like when I read it, it's like it's all the same. Because it's a story, I mean, in the sense that already the devotees explained, like that it's a story about whom? Can you tell me? This story of King Puranjan. And why is it, how do you know it's about us? Can you explain a little bit?
The name of the word Puranjana, one who lives in the body.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And who is the queen? Yeah.
So we are queens. King.
The queen is.
So we are kings.
Yeah, we're kings. But who is the queen? Yeah.
Material desire.
No. I mean, it in one sense, when Srila Prabhupada talks about. Actually, when he explains in the purport, he uses the queen in many ways, like a wife. And one of it is material desires in the sense of Maya. But what else? No, that's Maya. So it's more, yeah?
Intelligence, material intelligence.
Yes, and?
Love.
No. I mean, it's Maya again. And also, I forgot my notes downstairs, but I never used them anyway. So it's Srila Prabhupada said that Queen also represents, and you will read about it further on in the chapter, the principles of Krishna consciousness, actually, religious principles. Because here, so she is a metaphor for many things, and Srila Prabhupada uses her in many contexts. So it's very important for us that when we read the story of King Puranjana, that we read it very carefully, and so that we see that there are many meanings and there are many points that Srila Prabhupada actually wants to say with the story, which he explains. But we will now, of course, refer to what he is saying here, but I just wanted to remind you how the queen is actually considered to be intelligence. But this intelligence, as Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, when he was giving a lecture, he was trying to explain to us that there are two types of intelligence, like spiritual and material one. But actually, it's one intelligence, and it's either it's material or spiritual, because we always have one intelligence, and it depends on which it is, material or spiritual, according to how much it is purified. So we have this gross body that we got according to our karma, but we also have a subtle body. And the subtle body is consisting of? What does the subtle body consist of?
Mind, intelligence, possible.
Yes. So this intelligence is always with us. And it comes from where?
From the soul.
From the super soul. Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he gives intelligence, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So basically, for example, the person doesn't have to be a devotee, but according to his karma, he was supposed to be a great scientist. And then Krishna in the cart inspires him, gives him intelligence to pursue these goals, because he has these desires, and he gives him an impetus to actually fulfill these desires, and they are fulfilled if he has a karma for it, of course. So in that sense, it's always that from the super soul comes this intelligence. And what is also interesting, that when the spirit soul goes from one body to the next, who is accompanying him always?
Super soul?
Yes. So super soul never leaves the spirit soul. And even when we are in the spiritual world, we'll never actually separate it from Krishna. So he's always with us. And so we have this subtle body, which is consisting of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And actually, I was listening once to the lecture of Kandambakanana Swami. So this thinking, feeling, and willing, it's not something that one day we can decide, oh, we're not going to feel, think, or, I don't know, make decisions. It's always there. Even when we have a spiritual body, we feel, we think, and we will make decisions. But the difference is in the purification, or the quality of the feeling, thinking, and willing. So all this, when it gets purified, then the center is Krishna, and then we think about Krishna, we make decisions and act for Krishna's pleasure, and we feel, because Krishna consciousness is about bhakti, about prema, and that is love, so it includes feelings. So all of this never goes away in the sense, it is just purified through the process of Krishna consciousness. So, but here in this story, we have an example of a living entity who is conditioned. And do you remember why Narada Muni, actually to whom Narada Muni is speaking this story? And do you know why? I just heard it in a lecture why, so I'm asking, maybe you know also why. Yes.
He wasn't giving up his position as king. He was super old. He was enjoying too much, I think.
Yes. And who were his sons? Yes. So because in the chapters before, there was a story about prachetas, and how their father, he sent them to perform sacrifices so that they can actually afterwards be good grihastas. But then Lord Shiva saw them, and he instructed them on how to offer prayers to Krishna and how to think about Krishna. And then Narada Muni actually saw, this was from the lecture of Bhakti Charu Swami, he saw how his sons became good devotees, and then he was thinking what should I do with the father? I have to also enlighten him in a way. So that's why he approaches him and he tells him this story of King Puranjana. And yes, he was materially inclined. He was very much attached. I mean, he was not like us actually in this, because he was more pious. His whole day was spent in sacrifice. He was just performing sacrifices constantly. So in that sense, he was following religious principles of the Vedas, but karma kanda. And also he was performing sacrifices in the sense of killing animals. Because before, as Srila Prabhupada explains many times in the purports. So when the pious persons would perform sacrifices according to the Vedas, they would chant mantras. I mean, they would sacrifice the animals and then chant the mantras to revive these animals, and in that sense, like try them out. That was one part of the animal sacrifice. The other part, which is according to the Vedas, and it's allowed for the people who are in the mode of ignorance, and that is the sacrifice of the animals for eating. So, and this kind of sacrifice is performed in front of Kali, and only then it's allowed. And it is described how the person, when the person is when he has an intention to kill the animal, he has to be aware that this animal will come back in his next life, and the animal can claim the life of the person who actually kills him. So he was supposed to be aware of that. And then with that awareness, he was supposed to kill the animal. But since if you are aware of it and you have faith in the Vedic scriptures, then you don't do it. But also what Srila Prabhupada emphasizes is that even today there are many religions which are in the mode of ignorance, which allow killing of animals in the religious process. And I was thinking like the only one that I can remember is like Judaism, because they eat kosher food, and it's actually they offer it to God, and it has to be pure and so on. So I was thinking how actually according to the Vedas this type of sacrifice and eating in the context of religious principles is in the mode of ignorance, for the people in the mode of ignorance. So I found it interesting for me, because I was exploring sometimes other religions. Of course, there are other religions who maybe have the same principles, but I just remember that one. So this is why he actually tells him this story of King Puranjana. And this story is very nice because it describes that whatever we try to do in this material world, it will end up in frustration. Because, for instance, here now, the king loses the intelligence, the queen, and he goes on hunting. And that means, and Krishnanam was telling about that yesterday, that what he's doing is that he's going to the forest of 5 senses, and he's going to actually enjoy. He wants to enjoy his senses, and when a person has a great desire and is doing it in ignorance, then he loses his intelligence in the way. So that's what he's going to do, and he's going to get tired of it. And then he's going to come back to his senses, in the sense that he will approach his queen, his intelligence, ask for forgiveness, and so on. But the story goes on that in the end, he will realize that his best friend is a Vaishnava, the one who speaks about his true nature, and that he is the spirit soul, and the one who explains to him like where his fortune actually is. And he will be embraced by, how was it called? I forgot. But there is a name for the goddess of time. So he will be embraced by the goddess of time, which means that he will be embraced by old age, and then eventually death will come. So that's actually the materialistic life. We try to enjoy, but we are always frustrated because it's never the way we want it. And it's always something lacking. And then in the end, if we don't have any spiritual intelligence, in the sense that we really understand who we are, that we are spirit soul, and that we should try to revive our relationship with Krishna, if that doesn't happen, then it's just like you live and you die. That's all. It sounds a little bit depressing, but that's the way it is. So, and in this way, as I said, how the person just wants to enjoy, but he's frustrated. Here, what Srila Prabhupada gives is an example of woman hunting. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be just woman hunting, it can be men hunting, because today it doesn't have any difference, because women also have that nature that they want to have more boyfriends and so on. It's actually quite popular. So the point is that a person gets a partner which he or she likes, and then after a while he's not satisfied or she's not satisfied. But what Srila Prabhupada says is that when we accept a partner in our life, we accept it because we want to follow religious principles. And a wife or a husband is accepted only for that purpose. It's not accepted for sense gratification. And it's very difficult for people today to understand it because the values are totally like down. Like I remember like when I was in puberty and when I was in my 20s and when I was a student, like it was totally like everything that's here. Srila Prabhupada talks about how this is not a religion, how this is ignorance, how these are demoniac things. This is something that's normal in today's society. Like even if you say like, well, that's not normal, they are shocked. Like, how are you saying that it's not normal? It's because they're just, that means to be in ignorance. They're just not aware of these things and not thinking about it. And that's why they're not very happy. There's so many divorces and separations and hurt because it is Kali Yuga. But all this comes from our impetus to enjoy. And we have to understand that our true enjoyment only comes through Krishna. So it's normal that the spirit soul wants to enjoy because he the soul, or she, the soul, I don't know which gender it is, wants to feel pleasure. Actually, it's female energy, the soul. So the soul wants to feel pleasure, and it's totally normal that we search for it. But in whatever we search it, we are actually searching for Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada comes and he says that now I give you Krishna, so please take. And that's very sweet, like when he says that. Like when he was having a conversation in his garden in Los Angeles, he was talking about, and I found that so fascinating. So many like people from various religions, like I guess there were some priests, rabbis, or whatever they were at that moment, and they had Srila Prabhupada. And they had so many speculations about who is God. But Srila Prabhupada just told them, but I know who is God, and I'm giving it to you. And they still don't want to take. Like, because they're not sure, they're speculating, and, you know, this religion, that religion. So it's quite interesting. So our best friend is actually a Vaishnava Thakur, or a pure Vaishnava, who can give us of this knowledge. And, and in the Vedic scriptures, a woman is a symbol for sense gratification, because in the materialistic world, she's seen as an object of sense gratification. And also there are so many warnings, like in the Shastras, how woman is like this, woman is like that, and so on. And Srila Prabhupada, he used to say that whenever he gives these explanations, he was actually talking about the women who are in the mode of ignorance. He was not generalizing, and he emphasized that many times. And he would say to his followers that if you associate with these women, you will get purified. So, of course, the Vedas also teach us that we should look at women as mothers. And this is very nice, because when the Vedic scriptures say that, then you just imagine how you feel about your mom. You know, you have respect for your mother and you have affection for your mother. So that's how you should treat all women. And also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was an example of it, how he saw the family members. So he saw his wife as a servant of Krishna and his children as servants of Krishna. So if you have this concept in your head that these people are my responsibility, I should take care of them, they're part of my family, but I am helping them, I am facilitating their service to Krishna, actually. So these are just some roles that we have, and sometimes devotees, they make it very square, like this is like this and this is like that, but no, it's not. And that's why it's very nice to read Srila Prabhupada's purport and to see from which context he's speaking, what is he exactly saying, and also to read the letters, and also to see, to hear the lectures, and also to see his example, you know, how he treated, you know, women. And I'm talking about women because here is very much mentioned how, and it will be mentioned also, the women who are following the religious principles, the women who are in ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada will talk about that. And he also talks about when he says, I mean, he talks about all the time like, well, the woman is a Maya and so on. So I just want to clarify all these things because I think it's important. So, and also what he mentions here, and this is something that I will elaborate on. So that there are women in the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, and mode of goodness. So this is something also that is described in the scripture, and I will read about it. It's actually from the story of the Glories of Tulasi Devi. And I also wanted to point out one more thing because it's mentioned in the scripture, and it's important because, yeah, we are conditioned souls, we are prone to mistakes and various interpretations of what Prabhupada said. So just to make it clear. And also it will be mentioned a few times throughout the chapter. And that is that, what did he say? He said that, that anyway, that the man is never satisfied with a one woman. And therefore he says that in the purport that it was normal before for the Kshatriyas, Brahmanas, and even Vaishyas and Shudras, he says it like that they have many wives. So he was actually talking about polygamy, which is allowed in according to the religious principles. And we know today that there is still such practice, especially in Africa. I have a friend who is from Ghana or Sierra Leone, I don't remember. But anyway, so they're very traditional there, and his father, he has 3 wives. And for him, that's normal, you know. They have a big family, and they live totally different way. And when he came, we were studying together here in Switzerland, and he came here as a student, and he was so embarrassed to say in the Western world that actually he has 3 mothers and a lot of brothers and sisters. But just like concepts are very, very different. So it depends on where we are, in which culture we are. And Srila Prabhupada was very aware of that. But sometimes devotees, they get ideas. So just to be clear on what he said. So he said in the letters that he sent to his disciples, it was a letter to Swatsvarupa Prabhu. So please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt of your letter dated January 22nd and 23rd, and I have noted the contents carefully. I am very much encouraged that you are taking this program of preaching to the college students seriously, and this is a very important program. Regarding your various questions, first let us understand that polygamy cannot be permitted in our society. Legally it is impossible, and neither are there many of devotees who are prepared to assume the responsibility to have many wives. Therefore, as I have suggested previously, as they do in Christian religion, they have so many. This is also very interesting. He suggested previously that as they do in Christian religion, they have so many convents where the women stay and receive protection. The point is that the woman must be protected, and it is the duties of the leaders of the society to see that this is carried out. So you can see from that Srila Prabhupada had a broader vision about what it means for the woman to be protected, even though she should be protected by father, son, and a husband, but also that's why he established brahmacharini ashrams to give women protection in Krishna consciousness. And also what he said that polygamy will simply increase the sex life, and our philosophy is gradually to decrease the sex life till eventually there is no sex life. So that's why sometimes it is said that even a family man who accepts a wife, he can be considered a brahmachari, because even though he is in a company of a beautiful wife, he is still not attracted to sex life, because he's attracted to Krishna consciousness. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada would glorify such disciples of his, because in the sense they were very much regulated, and it was glorious to live such a life. And we have acharyas who were living in this way. So I'm just trying to give examples of how we can live in Krishna consciousness through all these principles and applying them to what material life brings us today. Like, of course, there are Vedic principles and history, and it should be obeyed, but everything should be seen in the context of time, place, and circumstances. So, and also what Srila Prabhupada says in the purpose is that a good wife means good intelligence. So, because a wife, she helps in the performance of religious principles. For example, if there is a Brahmana who is performing a yagya, according to Vedic principles, he cannot perform a yagya without his wife. She is needed. And that's why, you know, the Brahmanas in the story, when Krishna was begging food from the Brahmanas, they were like Brahmana wives. And in that sense, Srila Prabhupada there explains these things. So in that sense, I'm saying how Srila Prabhupada used a queen or a wife of a king in various contexts. So she was the representative of a Maya, also the representative of intelligence, representative of mind in some aspects, and also representative of religious principles and the principles of Krishna consciousness. So depending on what he's trying to say at a certain moment. And now I would like, because I think it's a very nice points that were made in this story of the glories of Tulasi Devi. So this story is very nice. We explain it and we talk about it in our seminar, The Glories of Tulasi Devi. So whenever you want, every year there will be one seminar about her glories. And so she came to this material world because she was cursed by Srimati Radharani. And why she was cursed? Because she was having pastimes with Krishna in Goloka Dham, and Radharani became jealous because she knew like what Tulasi Devi was thinking, that she wanted to have some time with Krishna, and she didn't like it. But you know, Srimati Radharani always does certain things to create certain situations which are then for benefit of us. And so let's say she cursed her so that she can go to the material world. But she also, Krishna, he knew about that, and he gave her remembrance of her previous life. And he said to her, like, you just perform penances with the desire that you obtain me as your husband, which is your desire, and eventually I will fulfill your desire. So that was one thing that happened. The other thing is that there was Sudama there, and Sudama liked Tulasi, and he wanted to be with her in a way. So then Radharani again became jealous, and she cursed him. So I guess Radharani is cursing a lot in this story. And then Krishna also told him, yeah, you will go just for a moment to the material world. And she also cursed him to become a demon. So he was born in a great Asura family. And it's quite interesting, like our concepts of Sura and Asura. So he was born in a family of Asura who were all great devotees of Lord Krishna. So, and he was very exalted. And Krishna told him, like, I will fulfill your desire. And eventually, after you leave your body in the material world, you will come back to me. So two of them came to the material world. Tulasi Devi was meditating on obtaining Krishna for her husband, and Sudama was meditating on obtaining Tulasi as his wife. And Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shri Shri Gauritai ki jai. And Sudama, whose name was Sankachuda, he was a little bit faster, and he obtained the blessings of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma said, like, okay, you will have Tulasi Devi for your wife. And then in the meantime, he came to Tulasi and he said, yes, you will have Lord Krishna for your husband. But before you become his wife and you have him for your husband, I have to fulfill Sakachunda's wish. You will have to become his wife first. And then after you leave your body, then you will become a wife of Krishna. So that's how it happened. And in this story, she was married to Sakachunda. And Sakachunda was a very powerful demon, and he had a jewel that made him invincible. And as long as his wife was chaste, he was also invincible. And because he was an asura, he was, he tried to rule all the universe. And he did. He removed a lot of demigods from their positions. And you know, the demigods, they always get disturbed by being removed from their posts. And Lord Krishna said that I will always protect the demigods. So the demigods approached Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and they said, like, we are so disturbed, he's taking all of our positions, you have to help us. So Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna made an arrangement that he will come as a brahmana and he will beg for the jewel of invincibility, and then Sankachuda will give it to him. So in that sense, his powers will lower down, and he will also disguise as Sakachunda, pretending that he won a battle, and he will come back home as him and be intimate with his wife, and then she will lose his chastity, and at that point, when that happens, Sakachunda will be killed by Shiva. And it's a very nice story because Lord Shiva was so merciful that he took the body parts of Sakachunda and made them into conch shells. And therefore, we use the conch shells in the worship of Krishna. They are also used in the worship of demigods, but he just like gave him a boon that by this body he will be included in the worship of all these personalities. And because Lord Krishna tricked Tulasi Devi, who was a chaste wife, she told him, "You are stone-hearted," and she cursed him to become a stone, and therefore we have Shalagram Shilas. And he told her that she will come as a Tulasi tree, and she will be always worshipped and always put at his lotus feet, and therefore she will be never separated from him. So that's a little bit about Tulasi, but there is a part where Sakachunda comes and he wants to say to Tulasi Devi that he wants to marry her, and then she actually tricks him and she tells a lot of things, and this is where the part of women in goodness, passion and ignorance is explained. So I will read that story. It has 3 pages, and I think then we will end with our time. So Tulasi saw Sakachunda approaching in his jeweled airplane and noticed that he was in the prime of his youth. He was handsome like Cupid, white complexion like the champaka flower, and decorated with gems. His face resembled the full moon of autumn, his eyes looked like lotuses in full bloom, and his cheeks flashed with the glow of his earrings. A parijata flower garlanded his neck, musk and saffron anointed his body, and sandal paste perfumed his person. As he came closer, Tulasi hid her face in her shawl and smiled at him with sidelong glances. Blushing at the thought of this first meeting, she bowed her head nervously and eagerly drank in with her eyes the lotus of his face. Shakachunda also gazed at Tulasi, seated as she was on a lovely bed strewn with flowers and sandalwood. Her teeth shone like pearls, her lips were like bimba fruit, her nose was graceful and her complexion golden. She resembled the autumnal moon. Adding to her grace, just below the parting of her hair, was the mark of sandal paste and musk, and just below them a mark of vermilion. She had a low yet deep navel, and below it 3 lovely abdominal folds. Her palms were reddish, her fingernails were glowing, and her feet were radiant and crimson, colored with black dye. Her glowing toenails surpassed the glow of autumn moon, giving her an unrivaled beauty. Shakachunda sat down and said to her, "O beautiful girl, whose daughter are you? And how have you come to this forest? You look most fortunate and blessed. Indeed, you are the personification of heavenly joy, the best of women. You are a model of loveliness and can certainly bewilder even the saints." When Tulasi gave no reply, he asked, "O gracious one, why you don't speak? I am your servant, so please greet me with the melody of your speech." Her head lowered, her face smiling, the beautiful-eyed Tulasi said, "I am the daughter of King Dharmadvaja, and have been practicing asceticism here. Who are you, and why are you talking to me? If a noble man sees a virtuous woman alone, he does not talk to her, so go away, wherever you please." But Shakachunda did not move. Tulasi continued, "The Shastras say that only a degraded man desires a woman. At first a woman is sweet to a man, but later proves fatal. Through her mouth rains honey, her heart is like a jar of poison. She uses sweet words, but her heart is sharp like a razor. To achieve her own selfish ends, she is submissive to her husband. Otherwise, she is unsubmissive. While her face looks cheerful, her heart is dirty. Even the Vedas and the Puranas cannot fathom her character. A wise man never trusts a base woman. She has no friend or enemy, for all she wants are new lovers. When a woman sees a well-dressed man, she inwardly desires him, but outwardly she appears chaste and modest. She is naturally passionate, attracts man's mind, and eagerly engages in sex. Though outwardly she hides her lust and appears modest, when she meets her love in secret, she is ready to swallow him up. When she does not have sex with him, she feels offended. Her body burns with anger, and she begins to quarrel. When her passions are fully satisfied, she becomes cheerful. When unsatisfied, morose. A woman likes a good lover more than sweet foods or refreshing drinks. She likes him even more than her own son. He is dearer to her than her life. But if the lover becomes impotent or aged, she regards him as an enemy. Quarrels and anger ensue. Then she devours him as a snake eats a rat. So, what do you think about that? So she is rashness personified and the mine of vices. A woman is hypocritical, obstinate, and unfaithful. Even Lord Brahma and other gods are deluded by her. She is a hindrance of the path of austerity, an obstacle to liberation, an impediment to developing faith in Lord Hari, a refuge of all delusion, and a living chain that binds man to the world. She is like a magician and is false as a dreams. She appears to be very beautiful, but she is a bucket of stool, urine, gas, and blood. When God created her, He arranged that she would become the spirit of delusion to the deluded and poison to those who desire liberation. Thus, on no account should a woman be desired, and by all means she should be avoided. So mostly the Vedas speak about women in that way. But Sankachunda smiled and then answered, "O goddess, what you have said is not completely false. It is partly true and partly false. From the Creator have come chaste and unchaste women. One is praiseworthy and other isn't. Examples of chaste women are Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga, Savitri, and Radha. Women who are expansions of them are auspicious, glorious, and very commendable, such as Satarupa, Devahuti, Svada, Svaha, Dakshina, Anasuya, Ganga, Diti, Aditi, Vedavati, etc. In every yuga cycle, these women are excellent. The heavenly prostitutes are also expansions and partial expansions of the above women, but they are not praiseworthy because they are unchaste. Women who are in the mode of goodness are virtuous and pure. The sages declare them to be excellent, but those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance are not so praiseworthy. The passionate ones are fond of sense pleasures, indulge in them, and always want to fulfill their selfish goals. Such women are usually insincere, deluded, and irreligious. Generally, they are unchaste, but women in the mode of ignorance are considered the worst. They are irresistible. A virtuous man would never court another man's wife in either public or private. But I have come to you by Lord Brahma's command to marry you and according to the Gandharva rite. So basically this was the part where it was shorter than the negative part, but still it was a part where it said that there are various types of women. So when Srila Prabhupada talks, and when Srimad Bhagavatam talks, and when all the saints talk about women in the context of her being Maya, and whatever it says, I cannot remember all the descriptions, but it is true in a way, because also other living entities in the world are also in the mode of ignorance, so therefore they have very similar qualities. And that is the way it is by living in this world if we have no knowledge of spirituality. But a good wife means good intelligence, so therefore it is advised that if you cannot control your senses, that you can accept a wife who is chaste, and by that be happy in Krishna consciousness and see her, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained, as a servant of Krishna. And also we pointed out how Srila Prabhupada was broad. He did not only say that woman should be protected by a husband, wife, brother, father, but also that it is the duty of the leaders of the society to protect women, and therefore him, as a leader of the Krishna consciousness society, also protected women by establishing brahmacharinis ashrams. So I found that also very interesting. So this is my contribution to the story of King Puranjana and various aspects in which the queen, the wife, and the woman was used. So I just wanted to contribute to that. So do you have any comments or questions? No, everything clear. Okay, thank you for your attention, and have a nice day. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
And also I found it very interesting.